was June 26, 2023 in Biwabik, Minnesota, a small, quiet town. At around 3:30 p.m., local authorities received a call about a body found in a house that had been empty for months. When officers arrived, they entered a home with no running water or electricity. It had clearly been abandoned. In the basement, they discovered the body of 34-year-old Brandon Lee Bushman, locked inside an old chest freezer. Brandon, known to friends as Skippy, had a long history of legal troubles going back to 2011. His past included arrests for shoplifting, trespassing, operating a boat under the influence, and possession of illegal substances. At the time of his death, he had an outstanding warrant, though police haven't revealed what it was for. Brandon had been avoiding arrest and had recently taken refuge in this empty home located in Babbitt, a small town about 10 miles from Biwabik. The house had no power since April 2022 and had been completely unused since February 2023. It was a place far removed from the public, hidden but also dangerously isolated. People familiar with Brandon told investigators that he'd been seen at the house shortly before his body was found. Witnesses claimed they saw him running from the upstairs area, possibly thinking police were nearby. Although no records show that officers were actively searching the home at the time, Brandon seemed convinced they were closing in. In a panic, he ran into the basement and climbed inside a chest freezer to hide. This freezer was an older model, large, heavy, and with a latch-style lid that locked from the outside. Unlike newer models, it couldn't be opened from the inside once shut. Investigators believe Brandon thought it would be a temporary hiding spot.
Oh no, they couldn't have the freezer from the inside.
Inside the freezer, authorities found a metal lawn ornament rod lid. It had been jammed between the rubber gasket and the lid's edge. Clear evidence that he had tried to open it from the inside, but the rod got stuck and the freezer stayed shut. He was trapped. Because the house had no power or neighbors nearby, no one heard or saw anything. There were no lights, no sounds, just silence. When investigators opened the freezer, it wasn't running. The lack of electricity confirmed it hadn't worked in over a year. An autopsy revealed no signs of trauma and no indication that another person had been involved. Still, authorities needed answers. A toxicology report was ordered to determine if any substances may have influenced his state of mind or played a role in what happened. At the time the case was made public, those results had not yet been released. Gilbert police, who covered Biwabik, explained that the freezer had an outdated locking mechanism. Police Chief Ty Tekar confirmed that once closed, the lid latched shut with no way to open it from the inside. This type of freezer was taken off the market decades ago due to safety issues, but older homes still have them. Lieutenant Chelsea Trucano said witness accounts were unclear. Investigators weren't sure if Brandon entered the freezer sometime in early 2023 or even late 2022. Since the house had been empty since February 2023, there's no way to confirm exactly when he was last seen alive. Authorities from multiple agencies are working together to figure out that time. What happened to Brandon wasn't the result of violence or another person's action. It came down to fear, isolation, and a series of rushed decisions. He believed hiding was his only choice, but once the lid closed, that choice became final. His family planned a memorial on July 15th at Babbitt Beach. Despite his past, they saw him as more than his mistakes. He was still someone's son and someone's friend, someone trying in his own way to survive. Until the toxicology results are in, some parts of Brandon's story remain unclear. But one thing is certain, he died completely alone in a forgotten house, locked away in silence.
And so the freezer was locked at 7 and the rest.
It was October 14, 2004. A Bombardier CRJ-200 jet was scheduled for a simple repositioning flight from Little Rock, Arkansas to Minneapolis-St. Paul. There were no passengers on board, just two pilots, 31-year-old Captain Jesse Rhodes and 23-year-old First Officer Peter Cesars. Both were professionally trained, with Rhodes logging nearly 7,000 flight hours and Cesars just over 760. The aircraft had no known issues and had recently passed inspection after a minor error earlier that day. The jet took off from Little Rock at 9:21 p.m. Right after takeoff, the pilots began flying aggressively. Within seconds, they executed a steep climb that triggered the stall warning system. Soon after, they performed another high-force maneuver. After leveling at 37,000 feet, they asked to climb to 41,000 feet, the aircraft's absolute ceiling, a height only allowed under very specific conditions. Air traffic control approved the request. Rhodes jumped over the radio that they were once at 41,000 feet, the pilots celebrated reaching what some CRJ pilots call the 410 Club, even opening sodas to mark the moment. But the celebration was short. At that altitude, the air is thin. Engines struggle to function and wings provide less lift. The plane was barely above stall speed. The autopilot, trying to maintain altitude, kept pushing the nose up, worsening the situation. At 9:54 p.m., the stall warning activated. Safety systems kicked in, trying to correct the aircraft's angle, but the pilots manually overrode them 3 times. At 9:55 p.m., both engines lost power. One of the pilots was heard on the cockpit recorder saying, "We don't have any engines." Despite this, they didn't tell air traffic control right away. At that altitude, they still had about 100 miles of glide range and nearby airports they could have reached. Instead, they tried to restart the engines using a windmill method, diving the plane to spin the turbines. But they only reached 236 miles per hour, too slow for the restart to work. They then descended to 13,000 feet and tried to use the auxiliary power unit to restart the engines. All 4 attempts failed. The engine cores didn't rotate. Finally, at 10:03 p.m., 8 minutes after the engine shut down, they told air traffic control they had lost 1 engine, not both. They were now below 10,000 feet. By 10:09 p.m., they requested to divert to Jefferson City Memorial Airport in Missouri. It was one of 2 airports still within gliding range. At 10:14 p.m., they saw the runway, but they were too far. "We're not going to make this," Rhodes said. "We're going to hit houses." Cesar suggested keeping the landing gear up to avoid hitting buildings. Moments later, the plane crashed into a residential area just short of the airport. It flipped upside down and caught fire. Both pilots died instantly. Miraculously, no one on the ground was hurt. The National Transportation Safety Board launched a full investigation. The aircraft itself had no technical faults before takeoff. The right engine had overheated to 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit, far above safe limits. The turbine blades had melted and fused together, making a restart impossible. The left engine didn't show signs of the same damage, but investigators found the pilots never followed the correct restart procedures. Some experts suspected a condition called core lock, where engine parts cool unevenly and jam, but there was no evidence of it. The main issue was clear. The pilots ignored their training. They mishandled the emergency, overrode safety systems, and didn't communicate properly with air traffic control. Following the crash, Pinnacle Airlines made major changes. They lowered the maximum flight altitude for CRJ-200s, updated simulator training, and ensured all pilots were educated on high-altitude emergencies. In 2013, the airline rebranded as Endeavor Air. Flight 3701 never reached its destination. It's a case of what can happen when professionals lose focus, push limits, and ignore the rules they were trained to follow. It was early 2014 in Santa Rosa, Argentina. Sonia Perez Lanzon, a 39-year-old amateur athlete and mother, was known in her community for her dedication to fitness. She ran marathons, trained in boxing, and raised her 20-year-old son, Kevin Berazategui. But despite her healthy lifestyle, those close to her noticed something else. Sonia had become deeply focused on changing her appearance. One friend who remained unnamed said she was obsessed with how she looked. This growing concern had already harmed her. The year before, she suffered third-degree burns from too much sun exposure, but the injury didn't stop her. In early 2014, she took things further, and this time it would cost her life. Without medical help or proper knowledge, Sonia began injecting Vaseline into her breasts. Vaseline, usually used to treat dry skin, is not meant for internal use. It's especially dangerous when it enters the bloodstream. But Sonia continued the process quietly, likely over several weeks, without telling friends or going to a clinic. Eventually, her health started to decline. She had trouble breathing and was taken to Lucio Molas Hospital in Santa Rosa, located about 350 miles southwest of Buenos Aires. Doctors found injuries on her chest, but had no idea what caused them. Her condition was serious, and her vital signs were unstable. At first, Sonia denied doing anything unusual, but as her condition worsened, she told the truth. She had been injecting Vaseline. The medical team was shocked. Dr. Julio Pla, the hospital's head of surgery, later said he had never seen anything like it in his career. By the time Sonia admitted what she'd done, the damage was already too severe. When Vaseline enters the bloodstream, the body doesn't know how to respond. It can cause blockages and inflammation. In Sonia's case, it led to a blood clot that traveled to her lungs. This condition, called a pulmonary embolism, blocks blood flow and can be fatal. Doctors tried to stabilize her. She remained in the hospital for a month, but the clot could not be removed. Sonia died from the effects of the injections on March 6, 2014. News of her death spread quickly, both locally and nationally. Many people were stunned. How could a strong, disciplined woman die from something so unexpected? The case raised difficult questions about beauty standards, pressure to change, and why someone would feel the need to take such a dangerous step. One article pointed out that pressure on women to appear perfect was higher than ever. Doctors used the case as a warning. Dr. Play told the media that while the human human body can fight off bacteria and viruses, it has no defenses against petroleum products. Other medical professionals, like holistic dermatologist Dr. Alan Daphne, explain that Vaseline varies in purity and is never safe to inject. When it reaches the lungs, it can cause a serious condition known as lipid pneumonia. Although most people use Vaseline safely, some have tried using it and other similar substances to change their appearance. There have been reports of individuals injecting it into their bodies, often resulting in long-term damage. But Sonia's story stood out because of how it ended and who she was. She wasn't a celebrity. She was a mother and a respected athlete. Her son Kevin was training to become a police officer. 2 days after her death, he posted a message online saying, "It has been 2 days since you haven't been here in this world. I will love you forever. The 20 years I spent by your side were beautiful. I'm going to live my life as a demonstration of your efforts as a fighter, as my lion-hearted mother." No one knows exactly when Sonia started the injections or whether she told anyone. What's known is that she made a choice she believed would help her, one that proved deadly. Her case remains one of the rare recorded deaths caused by Vaseline injection, and even now Dr. Clay's words continue to echo. "I've never seen a case like this." Sonia Perez Lenzon was 39 years old. It was August 2015 in Cantabria, a region in northern Spain known for its mountains and scenic views. Vera Mol, a 17-year-old from the Netherlands, was visiting as part of an adventure trip. She was excited, full of energy, and ready to try something new, bungee jumping. The activity was organized by a company called Flow Track, but what was meant to be a thrilling experience turned into a tragic accident that never should have happened. That day, Vera stood on a bridge in Cabezon de la Sal, getting ready for the jump. The bridge stretched across a highway and was used regularly by Flow Track, but this location wasn't legally approved for bungee jumping under Spanish law. Still, the company used it anyway. Vera wore a harness and a rope was attached to her, but that rope hadn't yet been secured to anything. If she jumped at that moment, there would be nothing to stop her fall. Unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. Her instructor, whose name hasn't been made public, stood nearby. He was the one in charge of giving the final signal, but there was a major problem. He didn't speak English well. In court, his English was described as macaronico, meaning very poor and difficult to understand. Even though he worked with international tourists, his instructions weren't clear. As Vera stood on the edge, the instructor said, "No jump." He meant she should not jump. She wasn't connected to the bridge yet, but Vera misunderstood. She thought he said, "Now jump." She believed it was time and she jumped. The rope wasn't anchored and she fell straight down. An investigation revealed several serious failures. First, the instructor should have used the phrase, "Don't jump." According to court records, that's the recommended phrase in these situations because it's much harder to misinterpret. The instructor didn't follow that basic safety rule. Second, Vera was underage. In Spain, you must be 18 to do bungee jumping. She was only 17 and the staff never asked for her ID. No one checked her age. Third, the company itself had no permission to run jumps from that bridge. Spanish law didn't allow it, yet Flow Track continued using it. The instructor worked for Aqua 21 Aventura, the local tour operator running the event. Both the instructor and another staff member were taken to court. They were accused of being careless in ways that directly led to Vera's death. A Flow Track representative, Martin Clone, later admitted in court that the incident happened because of a miscommunication. He confirmed that Vera had a rope on, but she was never actually secured to the bridge. The court called it gross negligence. The judge made it clear this wasn't just an unfortunate accident. It was something that could have been prevented. The people responsible didn't check her age. They didn't use the correct words, and they allowed a jump from a place that wasn't approved or safe. At one point, the company tried to place some blame on Vera, saying she jumped too early, but the court rejected that. The instructor was in charge. He was responsible for making sure she was safe and understood what to do. It was also revealed that the waiting area for the jump was unsafe. Participants were standing right near the edge without any barriers or safety markings. In the end, both the instructor and another staff member were found guilty and sentenced to prison terms between 1 and 4 years. The court made it clear Vera's death wasn't her fault. It happened because the people in charge failed in every way possible, failing to follow rules, failing to communicate, and failing to protect her. One word misunderstood at the worst time changed everything. Vera was there for a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Instead, it ended in disaster because no one took the right precautions.
Oh my god.
It was March 29, 1987, in northern Australia. Ginger Faye Meadows, a 24-year-old model from Colorado, had been traveling the country after being inspired by the movie Crocodile Dundee. indeed. She was exploring remote parts of the country aboard a yacht called the Lady G, captained by Bruce Fitzpatrick. The plan was to travel from Broome to Darwin, then on to Papua New Guinea. But Ginger never made it past a place called King's Cascade Waterfall. That day, the yacht anchored near the waterfall in the Kimberley region. It was a beautiful but isolated area, also known to be extremely dangerous. Northern Australia is home to saltwater crocodiles, which can grow up to 6 meters long and are known to strike without warning. The Prince Regent River, where they anchored, is one of their common habitats. Before anyone left the yacht, Captain Fitzpatrick gave a clear warning. Don't go in the water. Not even to dip your feet. These crocodiles often wait just below the surface unseen. Despite this, Ginger and her friend Jane Burchett, the yacht's chef, went into the water near the base of the waterfall. While they splashed in the waist-deep water, the rest of the crew climbed the rocks to view the falls. From above, Fitzpatrick suddenly saw a 4-meter crocodile moving directly toward the women. He shouted for them to get out, but it was already too late. Realizing they couldn't reach the boat, the women moved to a small ledge under the waterfall, backs against the rock. The crocodile was only a few meters away, floating still with its eyes locked on them. Jane later described how the animal came close with its mouth open. She threw her shoe at it, hitting its head. The crocodile sank below the water. Thinking the danger had passed, Ginger let go of Jane and jumped in, trying to swim away. She only managed 2 strokes before the crocodile came up from beneath and dragged her under. Jane, frozen on the ledge, could only watch. The crocodile surfaced again with Ginger's body. Her arms were raised, eyes wide, then pulled her under for good. The next day, Ginger's body was found in the mangroves at the edge of the river. That day would have been her 25th birthday. A rescue boat retrieved her body and began a 15-kilometer journey downriver. During the trip, another crocodile lunged at the boat, attacking the body bag. Fearing more attacks, the crew stopped and waited for a larger vessel to help transport her remains to Broome. Ginger's estranged husband, Dwayne McCauley, flew in that week to identify her. The incident quickly spread in the media and became one of Australia's most well-known crocodile attacks. The story of a young traveler being taken by a crocodile in such a remote place shocked people across the world. Authorities later confirmed there were no warning signs at King's Cascade. The location was so remote and the tide so extreme that signs were rarely posted, but Captain Fitzpatrick said he had warned Ginger directly. This incident reignited national discussion. The Environment Minister called for stronger penalties against people who ignored warnings in crocodile zones. But many pointed out there were no signs, just Fitzpatrick's personal warning. A few weeks earlier, a fisherman had been killed in Kakadu National Park in front of tourists. 2 years earlier, another man died in almost the same location. These crocodiles treat humans like prey. They don't warn, and they don't hesitate. Their numbers have surged in recent decades due to hunting bans. In the early 1970s, there were only about 5,000 saltwater crocodiles in the wild. Now there are over 60,000. The full details of Ginger's injuries were never released. Authorities only confirmed signs of an animal attack and that her body was badly decomposed. What's clear is that she had been warned but still went into the water. And in that part of the world, that one decision cost her everything. Ginger's story is a chilling example of how quickly things can go wrong in the wild. She was seeking adventure, and it ended in tragedy.
Because she had been warned not to. Alexander's main life words, and I guess all you dingbags. I guess I throws a phony in the air, it falls to the ground and cracks, so I guess my phony. Oopsies. Bin, I guess so when Alexander's in the bin, I guess so what the fuck. Alexander's gonna shine like poo. Alexander's gonna shine like poo. Oh, yuck. Alexander's gonna